Hello, I'm Tim Loughton, Member of Parliament for East Worthing and Shoreham, and welcome to the latest of my podcasts on the Tell Tim website. This time I've chosen a local issue where I want your views and comments, and I'm including a survey with this podcast that I hope you'll respond to. We're at the Grove Lodge Roundabout in Broadwater in East Worthing on the controversially congested A27. This morning I went to County Hall in Chichester, and it took me an hour and a half to get there from Worthing due to the usual congestion on other bits of the A27. Now, we're coming up to rush hour at the moment, and this roundabout will be far more heavily used in a few hours' time, but there's a lot of traffic now, as you can see. Now, just over 2 years ago, the Highways Agency put in traffic lights on the Grove Lodge roundabout that you can see behind me. They claimed that it would improve the flow of traffic, and at that time I held some public meetings just down the road at the Broadwater Parish Rooms, asking local residents what they thought, and not surprisingly a lot of people were concerned and thought it would make the situation worse. Well, 2.5 years on, I asked the Highways Agency to come back and speak to local people about how they thought the traffic lights had worked so far, and in June we held a public meeting at the Broadwater CB school just down the road, and we had a good turnout, and again the verdict from many local people was that they thought that the situation had got worse because of the traffic lights. Now, the situation is complicated because only recently have these traffic lights gone live with what's called a scoot system, and that means that rather than just change on a rota basis, the cameras are monitored at a traffic office back in County Hall, and they will be sensitive to the amount of traffic building up, and so the period of time between the traffic lights changing will alter to try and ease the flow of traffic. That scoot system is now in operation from Lyons Farm, again another busy junction just up the road on the A27, all the way through to the Grove Lodge roundabout. And there are also, of course, problems further down the A27 on the Offington roundabout as well, and there are plans to improve the cycle lanes and some of the crossings there. And there are a lot of school children in particular who travel from south of the A27 up Findon Valley to the Vale School there. So there's a lot of traffic, and there's a lot of pedestrian traffic as well, and obviously what we need to do is to make sure the traffic can flow more freely but also more safely, and that pedestrians and cyclists get a fair deal as well. Now, what I'd like to hear from residents, because we had a lot of mixed views, is whether you think these traffic lights have got better or worse in terms of easing the traffic congestion. Some people say that the east-west or west-east flow on the A27 might be a bit better sometimes, but the roads coming up to Broadwater from the town centre have actually got worse. And then just the other side of the roundabout, we've got the Norwich Union site. We had the very bad news recently that Norwich Union are going to be making most of their people redundant, and they will be looking to sell off that site. So it's very important that we know what that site's going to be used for, because it could seriously add to the congestion on the A27. So it's very important we get this right, and I will be working with local residents and councillors to fight any proposal for development of that site that leads to increased congestion on an already well over congested road, something we've been banging on about for a long time. So I'd like to hear your views. Do you think the traffic lights have helped or not? Are there suggestions you could make for easing the flow of traffic, particularly coming up to the Grove Lodge roundabout here? There's also the knock-on effect. Many people in neighbouring roads say those roads are now being used as rat runs. There are already some traffic calming measures there. Do you think they're working? Do you think we should have one-way systems in certain places or not? Also, another suggestion which came up is, should these traffic lights only operate at peak rush hour times? Because it's crazy perhaps at late at night, during the night, very early in the morning, when there's very little traffic relatively, people are having to wait some time at the at the traffic lights. I just want to hear your suggestions. What the Highways Agency has promised is that they are now undertaking a review of how they think the changes have impacted on the traffic, and I've asked that that review be properly published. Later on in the year it's likely to be available, and in the meantime I'm encouraging people to write down their thoughts, send them to the Highways Agency. I'll give details of how you do that on my website. Copy me in as well, fill in the survey with your own thoughts, so we can make sure that the representations from local residents do feed through to the right place at the Highways Agency, so that if they need to make some changes, that they can have everybody's views on board. This is your opportunity, again, to influence what's going on locally. So please look at this podcast, look at the survey questions, write to me if there are other things you want to write on connected with the A27 here, then I would be delighted to hear from you. The only point I would make is we all want a bypass around Worthing. Something that I've been campaigning on ever since I became the MP in 1997, something that many more residents have been campaigning for many more years than that. We are not going to get a bypass for the foreseeable future, and so it's vital, therefore, that we make the most of what we've got, and we use every measure possible to try and alleviate the pressure of traffic we've got now. The bypass we will continue to fight for, but it is a separate issue. So thank you for listening to that. Let me know your views. If you live in the Broadwater area, or live in Worthing, or just use this road on a regular basis, as many of my constituents do, then I want to hear your views, and you can do so by filling in the survey attached to this website and sending it back to me. Thank you for listening.